Hello and welcome. Tonight, federal government blames Sunday's deadly attack on St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo, Ondo State on the Islamic State West Africa province, ISWAP. At least 32 people killed, houses razed as bandits raid 3 communities in Kajuru local government area of Kaduna State. Deadline for conduct of primaries expires today as more political parties rush to beat dates set by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. And more congratulatory messages on the emergence of Chief Bola Tinubu as APC's presidential candidate. Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, former Transportation Minister Rotimi Amechi hailed his victory.
On business news tonight, Nigerian Exports Promotion Council reiterates that the country's survival depends on non-oil exports.
On sports news tonight, coach Jose Peseiro gets his first win as Super Eagles technical advisor with a 2-1 victory against Sierra Leone in the 2023 AFCON qualifying game in Abuja.
And from the nation's capital, businessman and founder of online media platform Roots TV, Dumebi Kachiku emerges presidential candidate of African Democratic Congress.
And in international news from London, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for Russia to be expelled from the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization.
And the identity of those behind the attack on St. Francis Catholic Church, Owo, in Ondo State has been unraveled. The National Security Council says the Islamic State of West Africa province, ISWAP, is responsible for the massacre that led to the death of about 38 persons on the 5th of June. Briefing State House correspondents after the council meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, the Minister of Interior, Mr. Rauf Aregbesola, disclosed that the police have been directed to apprehend the perpetrators and bring them to justice. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Mezuke, reports.
President presides over yet another national security meeting at the council chamber 4 days after the attack on St. Francis Catholic Church, Owo, in Ondo State. The meeting, which is holding in the council chamber, is primarily to address the binary issues of terrorist attacks and kidnappings across the country. Arising from the meeting, the Minister of Interior, Mr. Rauf Aregbesola, flanked by the Inspector General of Police, announced that ISWAP has been linked to the Owo attack, which claimed at least 38 lives.
The animals in ISWAP wanting attention and recognition are suspected to have launched that attack, and we have directed all the agencies concerned to go after them and bring them to justice.
The attack is not an ethnocentric or religious war, according to the Interior Minister, who is already visibly emotional.
Let us debunk the erroneous belief that the attack in a war is northernization of Nigeria, is modernization of Nigeria, modernization of Nigeria. No. Criminals, international criminals, savages who have no religion, who cannot even be said to belong to any particular ethnic nationality, are at pitching us against one another. That is what ISWAP represents. That is what, and I said we have seen their imprint in that attack, and we're after them.
Although no arrest has been recorded, the Inspector General of Police assures that investigations have been escalated.
The investigation will in near future maybe tell us what is the true position of that thing, and we are not going to leave it. And there are times they succeed, and that does not mean it is failure of intelligence.
He adds that the police is also reinforcing ahead of the June 18 Ekiti governorship election with over 17,000 men.
Perhaps one cheering news that has emanated from this conference is that 10,000 policemen will be graduating from training next month to join the force. Although the country needs way more than this figure, the IGP is confident that this addition will scale up policing and maintenance of law and order across the country. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
In the meantime, as our kingdom grapple with the reality and shock from Sunday's brazen attack, the residents of Ondo State have been suggesting ways to prevent a recurrence. Elder statesman Chief Olufalaye was among those who's raised his voice to the issue. He wants Southwest states to consider creating state police in addition to the regional security outfit, Amotekun, to prevent more attacks.
The attack on St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo is one that will continue to leave a sour taste in the mouth of Nigerians, particularly those in the southwest, for a long time to come. Residents have been lamenting the state of security in the country, with some suggesting ways of salvaging things.
I've heard that something like this has not happened before, so I believe that it's a possibility that even the security operatives or agents were a bit relaxed because this was not anticipated.
People of my age, when we were young, the least thing we think about was security. We can travel at any time of the day. We can live anywhere. We can sleep anywhere. But unfortunately, the story has changed.
Some consider personal safety consciousness as the way to go.
Let the governors of each state join hands with the federal government. Or the state can have their own state police.
This suggestion is not far from that of elder statesman and former presidential candidate Chief Olufalaye. He's worried that after several protests over previous attacks, nothing has changed.
The least I expect us to do now, before the election, I repeat, before the election, is for every state and local government that can afford it to set up their own police forces immediately. You don't need any constitutional amendment to have state police.
He wants states in the southwest to return to practice in the past, where each native authority controlled its security, that in addition to other apparatus at various levels.
There were 3 police forces that I knew when I was a child in this town. The Nigerian Police Force, the Western Regional Police, headed by Baba Omito Woju, and Akure Constabulary. Every town in Yoruba land, the Western region, had a constabulary or war. Ikare, Ibadan, Oshogbo, Ogumosho, Ilesha. Every town, I repeat, had a police force of its own.
There are fears in some quarters of a repeated attack in other areas across the Sunshine State.
The security agencies should also buckle up. What we are hearing is that they might continue. At the same time, they struck too in Kogi and somewhere in the east. I think we should be very careful.
But the regional security outfit, Amotekun, is asking residents not to entertain any fear.
And by the grace of God, the support of people in terms of timely information to us, it will not happen anywhere in Ondo State again. In fact, it will not happen in the southwest again. And the perpetrators of this act will be brought to book. We've known better now. We've known better. The difference between Amotekun and other agencies is that we deploy both conventional and unconventional security measures.
With this and other assurances from other security agencies, as well as asking for divine intervention, residents hope that this will be the last of unfulfilled promises of arrest and prosecution of perpetrators of such attacks.
Staying with security away from Ondo State, the Kaduna State government says 32 persons have been killed by bandits in multiple attacks after several villages were invaded. According to an initial report presented to the state government by security agencies, the bandits attacked Dogonoma, Ugwan Seriki and Ugwan Maikori in Kajuru local government area on Sunday. The report notes that the bandits stormed the area in large numbers on motorcycles, proceeded to raze several houses as they attacked and killed locals. After the attack, security agencies and traditional leaders in the locations have been updating the government on the development, pegging the casualty figure at 32. Meanwhile, the state government also refutes claims by some persons that the bandits launched the attack using helicopters. It explains that it was an Air Force helicopter under Operation Whirl Punch that was dispatched to the area and intercepted the bandits at Ugwan Maikori village. It said they engaged the bandits as they retreated before the arrival of ground troops to the general area. And about 4 persons have been shot dead during an armed robbery attack in the Sabo area of Ondo town in Ondo State. The gunmen were said to have stormed the community Tuesday evening. The driver of a bus loaded with tomatoes coming from Zaria en route to Ore was said to have been shot, while the motorboy escaped with gunshot injuries. The Public Relations Officer of Ondo State Police Command, SP Fumilayo Dulami, confirmed the incident in a statement in Akure, the state capital, to disclose that a motorcyclist and a passersby were also hit by stray bullets. In the meantime, the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, is worried about the rising cases of insecurity and killing of innocent citizens across the country. The NBA president, Olumide Akpata, stated this in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital, during the National Executive Council meeting of the association, where he stressed the need for Nigerians to hold governments accountable for failure to protect lives and property.
The life of every Nigerian is equally precious. And the sooner that the government of the day realizes this and takes decisive action to protect and safeguard the lives of our people, the more likely it is that terrorists will not be deterred from attacking Nigerians. I must state without equivocation that notwithstanding one's religion or ethnicity, there are certain standards which we must all subscribe to. The first of these is that of the sanctity of life. The furore caused by the arbitrary killing which threw the entire nation into shock and disbelief had barely died down when we received news that gunmen had all gone ahead to kill at least 12 people, including a pregnant woman and her 4 children in a community in Anambra State. There is a Daily Trust newspaper report that claims that 121 Nigerians have been killed in 11 attacks in the last 5 months in Birnin Gwari alone. There could be no better illustration of the failure of security than this.
Away from security, ahead of the 2022 Democracy Day celebration, President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to address the nation through a live broadcast on Sunday, June 12 at 7 a.m. The Minister of Information, Mr. Lai Mohammed, mentioned this during a briefing at Radio House in Abuja, where he detailed 6 activities lined up to mark this year's celebration. He also assures Nigerians that all the events will be held and no security breaches will be experienced.
The following programs have been scheduled to celebrate the 2022 Democracy Day. A. This press conference, which actually officially starts the program of the activities. B. A public lecture is scheduled to hold tomorrow, Friday, 10th June, at the National Mosque here in Abuja at 10 a.m. C. This will be followed on the same day and the same venue by the human service at the same at noon. On Sunday, June 12, there will be a church service at the National Christian Center at 2 p.m. And finally, on Monday, June 30, the ceremonial parade will be held at the Eagle School, starting from 9 a.m. Please note that the attendance at these events are strictly by invitation and in line with the COVID-19 protocol.
In part 2, after the break, President Muhammadu Buhari receives APC presidential candidate Chief Bola Tinubu as more congratulatory messages pour in for the APC presidential candidate. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Federal government blames Sunday's deadly attack on St. Francis Catholic Church, Owo, Ondo State, on the Islamic State West Africa province, ISWAP. At least 32 people killed, houses razed as bandits raid 3 communities in Kaduna local government area of Kaduna State. Deadline for conduct of primaries expires today as more political parties rush to beat the date set by the Independent National Electoral Commission. And more congratulatory messages on the emergence of Bola Tinubu as APC presidential candidate, vice president, former transportation minister, both hail his victory. And President Muhammadu Buhari has received the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, at the State House. The APC flag bearer, who was accompanied by the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and Mr. Wali Tinubu, was at the State House on a thank-you visit to the president following his victory at the party's presidential primary. Mr. Tinubu, on arrival at the State House, exchanged pleasantries with the president and others who were on hand to receive him. Mr. Tinubu on June 8 emerged winner of the APC presidential primaries after defeating other contenders at the Eagle Square. And the National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress, led by its national chairman, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, have met with the newly elected presidential candidate of the party, Asiwaju Tinubu, in Abuja. Speaking after the meeting behind closed doors, Senator Adamu says they met to congratulate him and assure him that the party is united in his support. The meeting comes amid concerns over the unity of the party after the National Working Committee was divided over the choice of the party's presidential candidate before the primary, which produced Mr. Tinubu as its flag bearer. And there's also more congratulatory messages pouring in for the presidential candidate of the APC. This time from the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Now, in his message, he says his sterling contributions to our democracy and its progress stand him out. His wealth of experience will certainly be critical in our party's continued efforts to attain a more secure and prosperous Nigeria. Also, the former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, who came a distant second, congratulated Mr. Tinubu, describing his victory as well-deserved. A statement by Mr. Amechi reads in part, "As you embark on this historic journey, I wish to assure you of my commitment to your success at the polls in 2023. And ultimately look forward to providing the necessary support to ensure that we develop a prosperous country for all Nigerians." Also, the Governor of Ebonyi State, Dave Umahi, says, "Let me assure you that the Ebonyi State chapter of the All Progressives Congress and I will support you and all the candidates of our party in the 2023 general elections." Mr. Umahi also encouraged all APC faithful to work towards the party's success. And it's not all, as the Governor of Imo State, Mr. Hope Uzodinma, congratulated the former Lagos State Governor. In his statement, Governor Uzodinma says the APC has once again demonstrated to Nigerians that it is dedicated and committed to the tenets of democracy and upholding all democratic principles by conducting a free, fair and credible primary election that brought in Mr. Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. Well, still in politics, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, says he will not tolerate any form of corruption if elected president of Nigeria in 2023. He stated this during a meeting with the PDP former ministers forum in Abuja, where he promised to reform the country. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Since emerging as the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar has been consulting. This time he's meeting with the PDP former ministers forum in Abuja.
What we felt were the challenges then.
The chairman of the forum and former Minister of Special Duties, Mr. Tanimu Turaki, SAN, tells the PDP presidential candidate that the former ministers are at his service and willing to work in any capacity he wants them to serve.
Every one of us is ready to be deployed into whatever assignment that you or the campaign council that will be established will find us fit and necessary to do. Your Excellency, this fight is not your fight. This fight is not even our own fight. This fight is not even the fight of members of PDP. This fight is the fight of all Nigerians.
For Mr. Atiku Abubakar, he has inaugurated his policy team 3 months ago, and fighting corruption is key on his agenda.
I will not be prepared to tolerate any form of corruption whatsoever in the next PDP administration. I think you have a role to play here because you are leading lights in your respective communities, your respective units, and so on and so forth. Yes, we know that the entire country is going through poverty, but that does not mean that we should condemn this country to a perpetual corrupt country. We have to reform this country for the sake of our own survival and the survival of the country itself.
As Mr. Atiku Abubakar continues his consultation with the stakeholders of the PDP, the critical decision for him and the party is who will be his running mate in the 2023 presidential race. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Let's head to Abuja, where Terry Kome is standing by with more stories. Hello, Terry.
Hello, Millicent. We're still talking politics, but this time from the point of view of the electoral umpire. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, has re-emphasized that all primaries end today across the country. He advised all political parties to beat the deadline set for the nomination of candidates and their running mates on the INEC portal, as only democratically elected candidates at the primaries for 2023 elections would be recognized by the Commission. According to Professor Mahmood during a briefing in Abuja, the INEC portal will automatically shut down on Friday, June 17th for all national elections and Friday, 15th July 2022 for all state elections.
All primaries end today, Thursday, 9th June 2022. For the next 1 week from tomorrow, 10th June 2022, all political parties are required to submit their list of candidates for national elections, presidential and vice presidential candidates, as well as senatorial and House of Representatives candidates, latest by Friday, 17th June 2022. For state elections, that is governorship and deputy governorship and state assembly candidates, the list shall be uploaded from 1st to 15th July 2022 as already provided in the timetable and schedule of activities for the 2023 general election released by the Commission. All political parties are required to upload the details of their candidates for each constituency to the INEC Candidate Nomination Portal, ICNP. The portal will automatically shut down at 6 p.m. on Friday, 17th June 2022 for national elections, and at 6 p.m. on Friday, 15th July 2022 for state elections.
Meanwhile, in a bid to beat that deadline, more candidates are emerging for next year's presidential election. And one of the latest to join the list is businessman and founder of online media platform Roots TV, Mr. Dumebi Kachiku, who was nominated as the presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress, ADC. Mr. Kachiku polled 978 votes to defeat former CBN Deputy Governor Kingsley Moghalu and 10 other contenders. In his acceptance speech, he promised to tackle insecurity and unite the nation if voted in as Nigeria's next president.
ADC. Delegates of the African Democratic Congress converge on Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, for the party's national convention and presidential primary. The rising force. 10 of the 12 aspirants are present at the convention and slug it out to pick the ticket for the party for the 2023 presidential poll. ADC. The chairman of the convention committee sets the tone for the event, calling the delegates to seize the opportunity to choose the best representative.
I welcome you two delegates who have been selected to do this onerous work. We want to say Nigeria is looking up to you.
The aspirants take the stage to woo the delegates for their votes. One after another, the aspirants lay bare their plans, hoping they win votes from the delegates.
I have not had the opportunity to stand on my own.
Before long, the ballot opens and delegates decide who flies the party's flag in the coming election. Voting done with, then begins the sorting and the counting.
586, 587, 588, 589.
And after all said and done, a winner emerges.
By the powers conferred on me as a returning officer, I do declare the winner of this election is Dumebri.
He promises not just to lead the party to victory, but unite the country afterwards.
We must stop this thing called North, South, East, and West. There's only the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We must never have a country that is divided along ethnic lines, tribe or religion. We can never have a country where our kids are at home for months and nobody cares, where our roads are not safe, where people die daily, where hundreds of school kids are in kidnappers' dens and governors are sleeping, the president is sleeping.
With the emergence of the candidate, the leadership of the African Democratic Congress says the party is ready to redefine governance if it wins at the poll.
In the meantime, the publisher of Sahara Reporters, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, has been elected the presidential candidate of the African Action Congress. Mr. Sowore was unanimously elected as the party's flag bearer by members of the party at a special convention in Abuja. Also, the former Chief Security Officer to late Head of State, General Sani Abacha, Major Hamza Al-Mustafa, has clinched the Action Alliance presidential ticket for the 2023 general elections.
It's the special convention of the African Action Congress, as the party seeks to beat the deadline set by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, for the election of its presidential candidate. Straight away, the party takes on the only agenda for the day, which is to unanimously affirm the candidacy of Mr. Omoyele Sowore. In his acceptance speech, Mr. Sowore starts by stepping down from his position as the national chairman of the party. He then addresses the delegates on what to expect from him.
In this election, we are going out to defeat the money bags. We are going out to defeat the so-called godfathers. We are going out to defeat the security agencies who have been aiding and abetting them.
It was a different situation at the convention of the Action Alliance, as 4 aspirants seek to secure the presidential ticket of the party. 2 of the aspirants, Tunde Kelani and Osakwe Johnson, stepped down for Major Hamza Al-Mustafa shortly before the election, which was conducted using option A4 mode. Major Hamza Al-Mustafa is the former Chief Security Officer to the late Head of State, General Sani Abacha. At the end, Major Al-Mustafa scored 506 votes to beat his only opponent, Mr. Samson Odupiton, who polled 216 votes. In his acceptance speech, he pledges to address the security situation in the country.
We must draw a demarcation from yesterday's West. We must draw a demarcation and draw a line that will help this country come out of the woods, come out of the dirty, smelly, muddy, mucky waters of democracy our democratic vehicle has gotten stuck in.
With the conclusion of their primaries, the African Action Congress and the Action Alliance are set to compete with the candidates of other parties at the February 2023 presidential elections.
The Nigeria Labour Congress says it only recognizes the Labour Party faction that produced Peter Obi as its presidential candidate. This was contained in a statement issued by the national president of the NLC, Ayuba Waba. The statement reads in part, the leadership of the NLC and TUC recognize the leadership of the Labour Party led by Barrister Julius Aburi, a former trade union leader. It further explains that the NLC and TUC are aware of only one presidential primary which was held in Asaba Delta State on the 30th of May 2022 and produced Mr. Peter Obi as its presidential candidate and standard bearer. Mr. Waba says INEC monitored the exercise and only recognizes the leadership of Barrister Aburi and the National Secretary of the Labour Party, Farouk Ibrahim. According to him, the TUC and NLC gave their full support to the processes which produced Obi as the party's presidential candidate. Well, that's all from the nation's capital. Back to you, Millicent.
Thanks, Terry. And it's away from politics here. The driver of a petrol tanker involved in an accident at Polo Roundabout, Jos North local government area of Plateau State, has been confirmed dead, while the vehicle conductor is receiving treatment at the Bingham Teaching Hospital following injuries sustained from the fire disaster. The fire incident occurred in the early hours of today when a truck laden with premium motor spirit lost control and ran into the barricade of the University of Jos Veterinary Teaching Hospital, while the contents spilled over and lit up. And you'll see a reaction of youths of Jakande Estate in Isolo area of Lagos earlier today over the alleged killing of a pedestrian by a motorcycle rider who drove against traffic within the estate. Eyewitness accounts say the pedestrian died immediately he was knocked down. Angered by the death, the youth took to the streets, setting ablaze over 20 commercial motorcycles. Reacting to the incident, the Lagos State Police spokesman Benjamin Hundeyin told Channels Television that the divisional police officer in the area responded and rescued the suspect from mob attack and afterwards evacuated the corpse from the scene. Mr. Hundeyin adds that the command condemned the act of jungle justice in its entirety, warning that anyone caught will be dealt with in accordance with the law. Normalcy has been restored to the area. And to health, the Association of Nigerian Physicians in the Americas, ANPA, has continued its medical mission in Edo State. This time, the doctors are attending to their patients via telemedicine. Now, the leader of the telemedicine team, Dr. Philip Osehobo, said the program is a follow-up to the recent medical outreach held in partnership with the Edo State government.
Telemedicine in progress at Ugbo Primary Health Care Center in Benin City, the Edo State capital. This initiative from AMPA makes it possible for patients in Edo State to access medical care from physicians in the Americas real time.
Very much so. This is UBTH.
The Americas-based physicians were in Edo State not too long ago to carry out free services to residents. Many of the doctors have since returned to their base. But Dr. Philip Osehobo explains that this follow-up is necessary based on the success of their medical mission.
The idea, ladies and gentlemen, was after the big and very successful outreach, we needed to continue to see these patients on an ongoing basis. That was number one goal. And the only way to do that was not for us to keep flying back every month to see the patient. It was practically impossible. So telemedicine became our avenue to establish continuity of care.
For the wife of the Edo State Governor, Betsy Obaseki, this medical program is one of the ways of saying thank you to residents for re-electing a husband to office.
They say health is wealth. So that's the reason why I thought the medical intervention, giving Edo citizens as many as we can, quality medical intervention and treatment, especially to the indigent ones, the masses, is one major way that Governor Obaseki and his Deputy Philip Shaibu can say thank you to the good people of Edo State.
While declaring the telemedicine hub open, the Edo State government believes it's an opportunity to promote services in all the primary health care centers.
In the below, all over
over the state. Our dream to have one primary health center of this standard in every ward.
The telemedicine services, courtesy of AMPA and the Edo State government, will be available to Edo residents every Saturday across primary health care centers.
Meanwhile, the federal government is currently reviewing the national policy on food safety and its implementation strategy. The government is also working with relevant stakeholders in the agriculture and health sector to coordinate food safety and deliver quality operations. This is according to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Mr. Mahmouda Maman, at the annual World Food Safety Day in Abuja.
The World Health Organization and the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations jointly observed the World Food Safety Day to strengthen efforts to ensure that the food we eat is safe, mainstream food safety in the public agenda, and reduce the burden of foodborne diseases globally. According to statistics from the World Health Organization, an estimated 600 million people fall ill after eating contaminated food, and 420,000 die annually. Also, 125,000 children die annually from foodborne diseases.
An estimated 600 million people.
Stakeholders are concerned that food chains are exposed to hazards and contamination and want more awareness creation for Nigerians on safe food preservation.
Foodborne illnesses also affects the most vulnerable in societies, including children, the elderly, and pregnant women. A principle of the UN is to leave no one behind, but we can only do this by improving food safety practices here in Nigeria and protecting these vulnerable populations. Food is part and parcel of every single person's life. Food is life.
Everyone has the right to safe, to nutritious, and to sufficient food. And everybody along the food chain is responsible for food safety. Therefore, the World Food Safety Day is an opportunity to strengthen our efforts to ensure that the food we eat is safe from the time it is produced to the time it is at the table. And this is the time to act for a better tomorrow.
The federal government, on its part, is not resting on its oars, as it is working to ensure that the country's productivity loss from foodborne diseases will be a thing of the past.
We are together with stakeholders and partners hoping for passage of National Food Safety and Quality Bill. Government is committed to working with private sector, state, local governments, and non-state actors, media, etc., to foster safety of foods.
Nigeria is witnessing an increase in poor food safety practices and standards, leading to health complications and huge economic loss due to poor preservation and contamination. Many here believe that the need to amplify the sensitization of Nigerians on food safety and hygiene against disease and death arising from consumption of unwholesome foods must be taken seriously.
And to Delta State, where victims of the Agbo gas explosion that claimed 18 lives have received cash donation from the Delta State government as relief to compensate for losses incurred during the unfortunate incident. Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, who had made a promise to help them get back on their feet through the Commissioner for Bureau of Special Duties, urged the victims to make judicious use of the money. The short presentation ceremony took place in Asaba, the Delta State capital.
Barely 2 days into the new year, tragedy struck in Agbo, Delta State, following a gas explosion that left 18 people dead. A day after the unfortunate incident, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa visited the area to commiserate with families of victims and assess the level of damage. At this briefing 2 weeks ago, Governor Okowa told journalists that families of victims have been compensated, while plans are on the way to compensate those who lost their properties.
I'm very much aware that I've given approval for the victims of gas explosion in Agbo, and I'm aware that they have been paid. So if there's anybody who has not been paid, let the person report formally, and then we'll follow through with that, because I know that they have been paid.
These victims from Agbo and Idumesa are gathered here waiting to receive cash from the state government as relief assistance. One after another, family members of those who died and others who lost property stepped forward to receive their cash compensation, expressing their gratitude to the government.
Today now, I'm in the office now, and they give me money.
I thank the government of Delta State,
the same way by taking the
and I
closing
thank
prayer
SEMA
before the Honorable Commissioner
for their assistance.
Shall we all rise?
It will go a long way to help with the damage that happened to my property.
They have their passport to their name, so that makes it easy for us to do that. We want to use this opportunity to thank the governor, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa. It is not just to approve. He graciously approved and released the fund, and that put a smile on the face of the people, even if we are not compensating them. But this will help them to cushion the effect of the fire, Agbo gas fire disaster on our people.
For these victims, the financial assistance will help to cushion the effect of the disaster.
Time for some business news. Here's Anne Wilder.
Thank you, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Nigerian Export Promotion Council says it firmly believes that Nigeria's survival as a country depends on non-oil exports. The executive director of NEPC, Mr. Ezra Yakusak, made this known today at the program organized to sensitize stakeholders on export trade houses. He stresses that maximum use of export trade houses will not only help improve the quality and quantity of made in Nigeria products, but lead to improved foreign exchange earnings into the economy.
Well, NEPC has taken a proactive measure to ensure that some of these products are removed from EU restricted lists. And because we realize that some of these products, the restriction is placed based on sometimes poor packaging and lack of mandatory or voluntary certifications. And so we decided to take the gauntlet, to take the challenge, and we invited some certifying bodies all over the world, and they've certified some of our products, and NEPC paid for it under the program called Go Global Gold Certification. And we've so far facilitated the certification of about 150 SMEs now, free of charge. NEPC paid for it. And we want to see how Nigeria will do everything for Nigerian products. We ensure that they are removed from such restricted lists.
And let's talk about oil prices. They dipped today, but still hovered near 3-month highs. And that's after parts of Shanghai imposed new COVID-19 lockdown measures. Brent crude futures for the month of August had dipped 0.55% to $122.89 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude for the month of July was at $121.32 a barrel, and that's down 0.6%. Meanwhile, peak summer gasoline demand in the United States has continued to determine prices. We head to the equities market now, where it continued its negative trend. Banking stocks led losses at the NGX today. Ini John Mekwa has the details.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the stock market report. Unfortunately, that positive sentiment recorded at the NGX at intraday was not sustained. As you see, the all-share index lost 0.04%. The value of that is 13 billion naira off the total market value. This is the second negative trade for the week, though it's marginal. Looks like a large part of today's profit taking was in the banking counter. It dropped by over 1%. Zenith Bank, GT Co, UBA, Accessco, they all shared from their share prices. FBN Holding barely escaped that today. Its price remained unchanged at 10 naira 30 kobo. Now, the high level of activities on the banking counter becomes even more obvious when we look at the top trades list. We see that apart from Transco, others were from the financial services. Unlike yesterday, the activity chart is all green. Value increased the most, over 79% at 3.34 billion naira. Analysts say the bull run is still on, but we do know that investor sentiment and decision would tell us the direction of the market. That's a stock market report. I'm Ini John Mekwa.
And that's Business News for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Mwawadu. The rest of the news at 10 continues now with Millicent.
Thank you, Anne. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is calling for Russia to be expelled from the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, blaming Moscow for spurring the global grain crisis by invading his country. Meanwhile, a pro-Russian court in the self-declared Donetsk People's Republic has sentenced to death 2 British and 1 Moroccan fighter, having been found guilty of being mercenaries. Simon Pusey has more international news and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has called for Russia to be expelled from the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization. He was addressing a ministerial meeting of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development group of countries in Paris by video link. Western nations have accused Russia of creating the risk of a global famine by blocking Black Sea ports.
The price of oil and gas looks likely to remain high for a while to come, and the same goes for grain and feed and fertilizer. And I know there are some who may argue, not in this country perhaps, but elsewhere, that the price of supporting the Ukrainians is now too high and they should be encouraged to accept whatever terms Putin may ask. I don't believe that option is really open to us.
Meanwhile, Kharkiv authorities said 3 civilians have been killed and 5 wounded in shelling that happened late Wednesday evening. Ukraine had pushed Russian forces back last month from the city's outskirts, but Russia has started bombing the city again more recently. Another consequence of the war in Ukraine is on ordinary people trying to do ordinary things like going to the beach. Tourists once flocked to the Ukrainian resort of Odessa on the Black Sea, but the white sands are now covered in mines because of the war with Russia. Ukraine's military had planted them along the coast in case of a Russian amphibious assault. On top of the war, Ukraine is now set to take a huge hit to its tourism industry, with other resorts similarly dangerous. Germany's Chancellor has condemned the attack on a busy Berlin street that left 1 person dead and 14 injured, calling it a cruel rampage. Mr. Scholz said that the attack had left him deeply saddened. Witnesses described seeing a silver Renault Clio veering into a crowd of people on the pavement before smashing through a shop window. A 29-year-old German-Armenian man is in custody. The man's sister told a German paper that he suffers from serious mental problems. 7 people have been killed in a suspected arson attack at a law firm in the South Korean city of Daegu. At least 46 people were also injured in the explosion in an office building near the city's district court on Thursday morning. More than 150 firefighters were deployed to the central location shortly after the blaze broke out. Police said they were investigating the cause of the attack but believed it may have been an act of arson. They say the suspected perpetrator, a man in his 50s, had died at the scene. A wildfire in the mountains in southern Spain has forced the evacuation of 2,000 people from the centre of the town of Benahavis and injured 3 firefighters. The blaze started on Wednesday afternoon on the slopes of Pujera Mountain in the Sierra Bermeja above the Costa del Sol. Hot summer weather and adverse winds are stoking the flames. Emergency services set up tents in the town of 7,000 people, but most of the evacuees found shelter with relatives or at hotels. Paris airport workers have walked out to demand better working conditions and a salary increase. A few hundred union members gathered outside Paris Charles de Gaulle, a terminal in the north of the French capital. Airport de Paris said around a quarter of flights would be cancelled on Thursday due to the strike. And the Chinese internet company Baidu has launched an electric vehicle, a new robot concept car, the first to be revealed by the Chinese internet company. The car will be targeted at users who like cutting-edge technologies, stating 99% of the vehicle's functions would be able to be voice-controlled. Besides equipping the vehicle with autonomous driving software technology powered by Baidu, it will have 2 lasers and use 12 cameras. Baidu's EV-making plan comes as tech companies around the world race to develop smart cars after Tesla's success in commercializing electric vehicles. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. And now for some sports news. Here's Ayotunde Balogun.
Thank you, Millicent. We start off with athletics. African record holder in the women's 100 meters hurdles, Tobia Muson, has claimed her second consecutive gold medal at the ongoing African Senior Athletics Championship in Mauritius when she overcame wet and windy conditions to secure victory in a time of 12.57 seconds. Liberia's Ebony Morrison and Marion Furry of South Africa settled for silver and bronze. Amuson's first won the title some 4 years ago at the 21st edition of the championship in Asaba Delta State and has now become the third Nigerian after Maria Usifo and Glory Alozie and fifth African to successfully defend the sprint hurdles title. In football, it's a perfect start for the three-time African champions, the Super Eagles of Nigeria, in the qualifiers for next year's African Nations Cup that will take place in Côte d'Ivoire. The Super Eagles earlier this evening defeated the Lone Stars of Sierra Leone 2-1 at the MK Abiola Stadium to hand coach Jose Peseiro his first win for Nigeria in a competitive game. Jonathan Morsey got the opener in the 11th minute. Alex Iwobi combined well with Moses Simon before placing a lovely shot across goal to level the scores before Napoli striker Victor Osimhen fired home a winner 5 minutes before half-time. And Wimbledon has announced the record prize money for this year's edition of Tennis Oldest Grand Slam tournament, with the two singles champions taking home $2.5 million each. The total prize money of $50.6 million represents an 11.1% increase on last year's championships, where capacity at the Southwest London venue was reduced for COVID reasons. It is also 5.4% more than what was on offer to competitors during the last regular edition of Wimbledon in 2019. The US PGA Tour has suspended all its members who are playing in this week's Saudi-funded Live Golf Invitational. The tournament being held at the Centurion Club near London is the most lucrative in the history of the game, with a $25 million prize fund. Phil Mickelson, Sergio Garcia, Dustin Johnson, Ian Poulter and Lee Westwood are among the players suspended from competing on the PGA Tour following their involvement in the controversial golf series. And that's sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The federal government has blamed Sunday's deadly attack on St. Francis Catholic Church, Owo, Ondo State, on Islamic State, West Africa Province, ISWAP, an incident that left 38 persons dead, several others injured. And President Muhammadu Buhari today received the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, at the State House. Mr. Tinubu was on a thank-you visit to the president. And that's News at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent. Have a good night and stay safe.